Hi, my name is Owen, and this story is called Blood Relics. So, before we get too far, or well, so a little bit before we get too far into world building stuff, a little bit of technical stuff, I think the format of this is going to be through world building, and then central characters, and then plot, and then themes and mood. And so the genre of this is science fiction. World building size is large, but the story size is kind of medium, so it's only about 2 to 8 days story, like time frame. Yeah. So let's get into world building. So this story is taking place on Earth. The year is 2607, 357 years after World War III destroys most life on Earth. And so the only place that was unaffected by the nukes was modern day California, Washington, Oregon, and half of Nevada due to being the testing site of nuclear force fields. However, it didn't take long after these few places with no sense of greater government to be overtaken by anarchy. And it wasn't until 2400, 145 years after the bombs, that the country of genre scope was established. So the main locations this narrative takes place in is the country of Genrescope, the country of Olympia, and the East. This particular story, however, will take place largely in the East. Stylistically, much of Genrescope is a mix of cyberpunk and dieselpunk. Olympia is much more steampunk and biopunk. Genrescope is a supposed democracy, and Olympia is a communist country. What many call the East, or the Wasteland, is the charred remains, or is the charred land of the nukes from World War III outside the two countries, where abominations, or what most people call Easterners, walk the earth. A little side for the Easterners, they are grotesque, ferocious, and mutated victims of World War III who have completely lost their mind and roam the East looking for food. However, there is something bigger going on. A little bit more world building. So in genre scope, most people belong to one of 7 clans. And 7 clans can kind of be thought of as massive families. Most members are thinly related by blood. The 7 clans are Scalise, Hydra, Jerrycan, Jonathan, Burrowsbrook, Tomspur, and Gamaver. The next we have is some of the technology is kind of split between special and ancient relics. So special relics are typically weapons or equipment that use radiation for power. For weapons, most are plasma or energy based. There are many different types of special relics. Ancient relics are typically weapons or equipment that don't use radiation for power. They're generally things that were used before the energification, which I don't know if that's a word, but it should be, of weapons before the nukes of World War III. There is also another kind of relic called a dual relic, which is essentially mixing between the two, and this is usually done by artisans whose sole job is to do this. Then we have the 13, which is basically a group that holds something called blood relics, which give the user supernatural-ish powers. It's all scientific, but and I'll kind of get into these a little bit later. But known blood relics to the world is trust, war, influence, colors, build, technology, teach, work, knowledge, economics, luck, history, and strength. And each of those is with a single person. Then we have our 3 factions, which is the Rebellion, Government, and the People's Syndicate. The Rebellion's goal is to take over the government of Genrescope, and the government's goal is to squash both the Rebellion and the People's Syndicate, and the People's Syndicate goal is to destroy the government and prevent the Rebellion from taking over, which they pretty much strive for anarchy. So yeah, and this is really only the tip of the iceberg for the world. I've been kind of working on this story for about three or 4 years now, so too much world building really to put into this. So, all right, next. So a few visuals. I don't own any of these. I'm not good at art, so yeah. So at the top left, you can kind of see the alignment of the 3 factions. You can kind of see my idea for what visualize like what a genre scope looks like in the capital. The bottom left, you can kind of see what special relics are kind of looking like. Generally more plasma and radiation related, and ancient relics are more materialistic. In the dead center at the bottom, you can see the red contraption that that man is in. This sort of kind of represents the Blood Relic trial that 13 members have to take, although it's a fair amount different, but it's an okay representation. Then on the right, you can kind of see what destroyed cities in the east look like, and as well as what the deserts look like, which is mostly what the east is comprised of. And next to those, you can kind of see a few representations of what Easterners look like. They're grotesque, mindless, starving. They're to be avoided at all costs for many reasons. Alright, so next I think we're on to characters. Yes, we are. So our first character is Nicole Scalise. She is 21 years old, and she's the successor of Maestro Scalise, who was the Strength Blood Relic holder. And the Strength Blood Relic gives the user the physical strength of individuals' lifetimes, added and compounded, essentially giving super strength. Maestro was her uncle, as well as the former president of GenreScope. Her parents were killed in the Great War, and she was to be orphaned, but instead was taken in by Maestro, her uncle, and the new president of GenreScope. After she found out the truth behind Maestro's supposed illness and death, she vowed revenge. She has auburn hair, light hazel eyes. Equipment she uses ancient relic assault rifle, special relic plasma pistol, and a short sword dual relic. Her goal is to travel through the east and get the strength blood relic. Motivation is to avenge her uncle and kill Anderson, her uncle's killer. How far she is willing to go is to pick fights with any of the 13 members and even fight the Eastern King if she must, which is another person you want to avoid. Next, we have Mariel Scalise. She is 25 years old. She's the successor of Jeff Brosbrook, who was the technology blood relic holder. And that blood relic pretty much gives the user the ability to have practically all knowledge in anything and everything technological. Just by looking at it, they can break down the components and know how to make more or strengthen this technology. Jeff was her mentor and boss. He was also the CEO of EEU, which is Energy Efficiency United. She was very smart student in school, getting perfect marks, and gained the attention of even Jeff Brosbrook himself, which is crazy. Her brother is in the military, and her father was a member of the border group, the Wolves. Something to know about her, she has a split personality disorder. She's normally very nice and caring for others' health. Her personality switches, however, when she gets extremely stressed, and this suppressed personality is very cold towards all, even her own family, and would do anything to eliminate what is threatening her, whether that be friend or foe. The equipment she holds is the I See All special relic, which is a unique special relic that allows her to kind of see how amounts of radiation and things, so she can, and this goes like through walls and whatnot, and so she could potentially be able to see where Easterners are to avoid them, or see where other things like that. And then you have it. Then she also has an ancient relic pistol and an ancient relic knife. Her goal is to travel through the east and get the technology blood relic, but her motivation is to fulfill her mentor's last words and help the rebellion defeat the government, and also to crush the Castle of Glass, who caused his death, which that's another faction that I didn't really talk about, but not really particularly important for the story. How far she is willing to go, she will often put others' safety ahead of her own. If her other personality is in control, it doesn't matter who is in her way. She will prioritize her own survival at all costs. Okay, next we have Eric Gamaver. He is 27 years old. He is the successor of Paul Hydra, who is the Work Blood Relic holder, or who was. And that relic pretty much gives its user the ability of unlimited stamina, never getting fatigued physically. They have a constant state of adrenaline, easily easing any pain affected on them, which has its pros and cons. Paul was his adopted father and the de facto leader, champion, and protector of the homeless and helpless. Eric grew up in what many in GenreScope would call a sewer rat. He is His family died when he was young in the Great War, and he'd been ousted by the orphanage system many times, and threw him in the streets. He'd stolen, robbed, and begged for food, and for shelter he'd sleep in dumpsters. It wasn't until Paul found him did his life improve. He'd learned good manners, new skills, and found a reason for living. He has blonde hair, wears bullet, slash, and bright-proof armor, which was Paul's. He also uses his signature dual relic knife. His goal is to travel through the east, get the Worldbuilding relic. His motivation is to demolish the castle glass again, and to help the People's Syndicate destroy the government and not let the rebellion take power. However, overall, he is basically to destroy the divide between the rich and the poor. How far is he willing to go? He won't do anything without consent that would sacrifice or put his allies in great danger, but he is very willing to put himself in great danger. He is very confident in his abilities, and there are only very few who he will avoid at all costs. So, next we have general plot. So just as an aside, this is again a story or a world I've been developing for years, and some of these characters in this plot doesn't get introduced until like book 4 or 5, and so it's really ahead of where I currently am with writing, but that's part of the reason why I picked this. And so a lot of things is subject to change. But essentially, the trio travel from the border group, the Wolves, and enter the east for their quest. Throughout the journey, about 2 to 8 days, they have run-ins with Easterners and must work together to overcome the odds of survival, eventually make it to this facility, take the trials, and obtain their new powers. Then they must learn how to use them as they escape back to genre scope, but once they do, I haven't really got that far yet. Don't plan ahead that far. So, themes and mode. There are horror genre elements in both the story structure and general feeling as these characters go up against the Easterners, although for structure, it is definitely to suffer expectations from that typical structure in horror genre. Only Maro has any experience with the Easterners, and so it is a brand new and unknown experience with Eric and Nicole. This story explores motivations and teamwork. With shaky allies, the 3 characters may have the same short-term goal, but their motivations, factions, and what they're willing to do to achieve differ, some more greatly than others. When their journey together is over, what happens when they get back? So the East will test their motivations and their willingness to achieve their goals. That's pretty much it. I look forward to talking with you all on Tuesday, and I hope you all have a nice rest of your weekend. All right.